G'day, I'm Paul. Now, the Toyota Supra, it is a seriously controversial car, but this is going to be slightly different because that's my car. I bought the Toyota Supra, and today we're talking about the 5 main reasons I put my own money behind that car. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other cars I own as well, because that's what you guys are wanting. Everyone keeps asking me about this and they want to find out a bit more about it and what it's actually like to live with. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to you. Now, on top of that as well, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone that has been watching our videos and getting involved on social media as well, commenting. The subscriber count is amazing. We weren't expecting it to go as well as it has. So a big thank you to everyone who has become a part of the CarExpert family, as cheesy as that sounds. Today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We've split this video into 2. The first half is going to be the 5 main reasons I bought the car, and the second half is a bit of a Q&A. And that's with the questions that you guys have sent through on Instagram just before we started filming this. If you have any other questions, you can leave them in the comments below or hit me up on social. And if there's enough comments there, we're going to do a completely separate video, like a Q&A style video as well. So yeah, we'll try it out, see how it all works. Let's get cracking. Let's kick off with reason number 1. So I bought the Supra because of the way that it handles on the track. I had the chance to drive this car as a prototype all the way back in 2018 at a track called Jarama. It's just outside Madrid. All the cars were all camoed, but you kind of got a good idea of what they looked like. They were still finishing up things like exhaust and I think the stability control tune as well. I was there with my previous employer, which some of you may know. But yeah, I remember driving it going, holy crap, this car is an absolute missile. When it got to like 3rd gear, it unleashed all of its torque, pinned you back in the seat. The way that it handled the racetrack was really cool. And I love the noise as well, because one of the reasons that I'll get to in a sec is the engine. And the engine in this car sounds absolutely sensational. So that is the first reason, the way that it handles on the track. And I just loved the way that it rode on the road as well, because that's where Toyota's ride and handling tune actually came in above and beyond what BMW had done. So that meant that it was compliant like a Toyota, but kind of drove like a BMW. Reason number 2, I love the fact that it's so controversial. In the lead up to the car being announced and the concept coming through, I love the fact that everyone was getting their knickers in a twist about how different it was to the last generation of Supra. Now, when I was growing up, the last generation of Supra was nice, but it wasn't what people picture in their heads as a Supra. People picture 1,000 horsepower drag cars, drift machines. A standard Supra was fast, but it was more a Grand Tourer. It wasn't some ridiculous missile that competed with the GTR. And when this car came out and the specs came out, everyone was jumping up and down about how slow it is, how it doesn't compete with the GTR. Well, I don't think that was ever the plan. It was never meant to do that. So I just love the fact that it caused a lot of controversy, and that certainly followed through to ownership as well, because I found that people still either love or hate the car. There's really no in between, and I find that fascinating. But the thing that brings everyone together is the design. Even people that don't like the car still kind of think it looks good, and people who don't know anything about cars still think it looks good. So, and one of the things I learned when we drove the prototype was that Toyota was in fact involved in this process from ground up. It wasn't like Toyota came along and said to BMW, okay, you've done the Z4, we're going to take the keys now and just change a few things. Toyota was actually there from the very early stages of dimensions of the car, picking the right engine for the car as well. Because remember, Toyota doesn't actually have an engine to put in this car. So that's where all this started for them. And it also meant that they could really get the handling and also the ride right, which only really Toyota could do if they did it all from the very beginning. But yeah, it was more just that the car was controversial and had to be good to live up to that Supra name, and I think they've absolutely nailed it in terms of the entire package. Okay, reason number 3, it's the engine. This is one of my favorite engines ever. I love the M140i, and this really follows on from that with the B58. It's a 3-litre, 6-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine. It's such a smooth engine. BMW has really just perfected this, put their own twist on it, and just given it a real life of its own. And I also love the fact that it's not mated to a dual clutch gearbox. If you've watched some of our other car reviews, I'm not a huge fan of dual clutches. Often we're testing them in buzz boxes and economy hatches, and they only use a dual clutch to save fuel and for fuel efficiency. When you stick it into a sports car, if it's not a good one, it kind of kills the day-to-day driving experience. This, on the other hand, the 8-speed automatic from ZF is really smooth. It's not that smooth when you're coming to a stop, but the rest of the actions are really smooth. The gear shifts are super fast. It goes down gears really quickly. It's quite an intuitive, sporty gearbox, and it works sensationally with this engine. So that is the main thing that really gels this car together. Now, one question that a lot of people asked was, what was I looking at instead of this? And this is how weird car people are. You might think to yourself, okay, this car's about $100,000. I would have been looking at cars around this price point. Well, I wasn't. I didn't really have a price bracket to work with. I just wanted something fun to drive that my wife wouldn't want to drive, and she never drives this. So I really wanted something that nailed that brief. I had a look at a Cayman GT4, a second-hand one. They were holding their value well, so I thought from a resale perspective, that would be pretty good. Couldn't find the right one, and it wasn't going to be super practical. It was a manual only, which I love manuals, but if my wife ever needed to drive it, that wasn't really going to work. The second car I looked at was an Australian car, the HSV GTSR W1. I got to the point of almost buying one. Basically, I found a pilot car, one of, I think, 4 pilot cars they built. So it was based on a 2015 GTS that they then retrofitted with the LS engine that they use in the W1. Unfortunately, the car was sold before I could get to it, and all the new examples were just astronomically priced, and I just couldn't justify paying that kind of money for a car that I knew would settle in price eventually. And then, of course, I looked at the natural options, the BMW M2 and the M2 Comp. M2 I like, but it was probably a little soft around the edges. M2 Comp came out, but there was a lot of them. They weren't very rare. So I thought, okay, what if I wait for the M2 CS? That was still going to be a little while away. That's only just sort of landed in Australia, or will be landing in Australia soon. That's pretty expensive for what it is. And then BMW has a habit of just bringing things out above it as well. And you'll hear when we do the things I don't like about this car, which will be a separate video, one of the things that's kind of irritated me with Toyota, but we'll get to that later on. But that gives you an insight into the other cars I was looking at as well. But it really is the engine that sold me on this car ultimately. Okay, let's jump to reason number 4. As you know from our other videos, I'm a bit of a tech buff. I love technology in cars, and I love iDrive. iDrive is one of my favorite infotainment systems in a car. So when Toyota said they were teaming up with BMW to do the Supra, of course that meant we were getting iDrive, and they finally confirmed it. I thought, oh, thank God. It means I don't have to have a Toyota infotainment system. I get this instead, which is a color touchscreen with iDrive. I get a screen here in front of me, a heads-up display. It's all really easy to use. The voice recognition's great. Wireless phone charging. It really is just a complete package. It is let down though by a few things. And again, I'm going to go through this when we talk about the things I don't like about this car. But for some reason here in Australia, Toyota has skimped on being able to do remote services. That means I don't get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I don't get traffic on the nav system, which I think is just absolute bullshit. So that is really disappointing. But from a tech package, this car has everything that you need. So it's not like you're getting a sports car that's limited on tech. It's really functional, very easy to use. And because it's a BMW, they're kind of working on these systems all the time. So you're getting software upgrades as it goes. So yeah, absolutely love the tech package in the Supra. Reason number 5 why I bought the Supra. It's something that has evolved since I've owned it, but the main sort of reasoning behind it was when we drove it in Spain as a prototype, I could not believe how many heads the car was turning. And I'm not buying a car because I want people to look at me, but it helps that the car gets attention, whether people love it or hate it. And I love talking about cars to people. So the fact that people are stopping me all the time to talk about it, I love sort of being able to tell them, get them to sit inside the car, get them to experience it. And that all sort of started when we did that prototype drive, because initially I thought it could have been just the camouflage, but a lot of people were interested in the car, and they're all like speaking Spanish at me when we were driving, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. The whole interior was still covered up, but yeah, they absolutely loved it. And that has evolved since I bought the car to the point now where it is turning so many heads, more than any supercar I've ever driven. This turns more heads, guaranteed. And I think it's partly the color. I've got Nürburgring Grey, which is like a matte finish. It's a limited global supply of these cars, and certainly limited in Australia. We only get 350 in total for the first 12 months. So yeah, the car itself is quite limited in that sense, and it just gets attention everywhere that it goes, even from people that don't like cars. My wife, parents, all these people that don't like cars just absolutely love the way that it looks. Okay, it is time to answer some of your Instagram questions. Yesterday I put this up on Instagram, and we got a stack of questions here, and I've picked my 6 favorite ones. I'm going to start with this one here from Igor Solomon, who is coincidentally our cameraman, and I think he just wanted to include this video clip. So his question was, dude, is that a Supra? Is that a Supra? Haha. Cheesy Eggs 26. How did you make it through the lottery? Any special favors? Okay, so the question there relates to the way this car was allocated in Australia. Because we only got initially 300 cars that expanded to 350, they had to basically set up a lottery system, and they didn't want people gaming the system, because in the past, when there has been limited edition cars in Australia, people would buy 2, 3, and then basically resell them immediately after. So to prevent that from happening, they had a setup that basically at a certain time, the gates opened and you had to give a deposit. The deposit was $1,000, and you had to link it to your driver's license. So that meant that you couldn't go and register 6 different cars, because you would only get 1 allocation for your driver's license. The lottery was then sorted, and you have to give them your preferences, either first or second. And my first preference was actually the Nürburgring Grey, which is this matte color with the Alcantara interior. Somehow I made it through the lottery and won that. And I had no assistance from anyone at Toyota, it just happened. So I was lucky enough to get in there straight away. And I actually filmed this clip of me doing it at the time. So you can see how stressful it was. We were out doing a shoot somewhere, and basically was just sitting there with my laptop trying to get through with my credit card, and finally got in there. So I was really happy to make that. I then got a call from Toyota's concierge. They had a dedicated person that would allocate cars to people and then also follow through the whole process with them. So I got my first preference and was extremely happy with it. Next question from Mickey Hoog. If the spot where the cup holders are full, can you put drinks in the door bins? That's a good question. So I've got a cup in the cup holder. If that's full, does it fit in the door bins? If you come around here, Igor, you will see that the answer is no, unless you're drinking out of like a goon bottle or something that you can cram into the door. You're not going to be able to fit anything in the door bins, which is interesting. I've never actually really noticed that. I've only ever had cups in the car. Okay, next question from Be Real Swanee. Better track driver at the limit, Toyota Supra or BMW M2 Comp? Okay, so based on my experience, having driven both of these cars on the track now, the M2 Comp Edition is far more track focused and is a better weapon on the track. The engine is sharper than this, it's better tuned for track work as well, and it's a little more dynamic. This is quite soft even in the sport setting as you throw it around on a racetrack, so that's worth keeping in mind. This is more an everyday car, whereas the M2 Comp has that edgier track experience to it. Question here from, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this right, Hans Pratama 96. Can you change the fake air vents to real ones? So let me show you something here. This is one of the air vents on the side, right? So you can see that's clearly fake. It's not real. It's just completely filled in. But if I crack this open, and Igor, come around this side, you can see behind here that air vent actually sits in behind there. If you wanted to, you could cut this section out and have that as a functional air vent. The whole reason that is closed off is more just for emissions. It means that they can have a better fuel economy figure for this car because you don't have air escaping, you can retain heat inside there. But you can see that they have built this for modifications. So they have holes here and on top of the suspension mounts for strut tower braces, and people are already doing aftermarket kits for those things as well. Okay, last question from Napsy91. What made you change the wheels? Not dissing, just curious. Well, to be honest, I actually don't really like them. I think they look a little bit goofy on the car. They're kind of a bit small. The backstory to these is the wheels, they're Yokohama Advan GTs and they're sitting on 8008 tyres. These wheels were actually red, and these were attached to a car at the World Time Attack Challenge in Sydney. They were actually attached to another Supra that was doing drift demonstrations. They were getting rid of them, and I thought, well, I wouldn't mind having another set of wheels and tyres for track days. So I bought these, stripped all the red stuff off them. These tyres have been fantastic, but never really had a chance to do a track day because of all this COVID stuff that popped up. So they're yet to experience a track day, but initially I can immediately feel that they have stacks more grip and I get a lot more traction out of the car as well. But I just don't really like the look of these. From side on, they look a little bit weird. Let me know in the comments below whether you think they suit the car. I've kept the original wheels as well, so I can stick those back on when I'm done stuffing around. That is all we're gonna have time for because we still have to finish filming that car over there, which is the other car we're reviewing this week. Let us know if you've enjoyed this format. I don't know if this works, we've just sort of shot it a little guerrilla style, and if you have enjoyed it, we'll roll this out for the rest of the cars that I own, and then also do a whole lot more content on this car as well. And with the Q&A, we need as many questions as we can, so leave them in the comments below, and also send me some through social media and stuff like that. And then on top of that, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Feel free to share this video if you found it interesting, press the like button as well, and the bell icon's going to tell you every single time we post a new video. But I look forward to bringing you more content on this and in this format as well if you've enjoyed it. But until next time, drive safely.